Have you ever stopped and wondered why your lower back seemed to always be stiff or sore, even on days you didn't do anything wrong? Maybe you didn't lift anything heavy. Maybe you weren't at the gym deadlifting or rearranging furniture. Yet somehow, by evening, you catch yourself placing a hand on your lower back when you stand up from the couch, almost bracing for that dull ache. Or maybe it's first thing in the morning. You roll out of bed, start walking toward the bathroom, and there it is, that familiar tightness that makes you take short, cautious steps until your spine loosens up. Here's the honest truth most people don't realize. Lower back pain rarely comes from a single dramatic event. It's not always about that time you twisted wrong or helped someone move a sofa. The reality? For most people, lower back pain builds up quietly, day after day, from tiny little mistakes you make without even realizing it. The hidden danger of harmless daily habits. It's like erosion. A rock doesn't get shaped overnight. It happens slowly, from constant, small pressures over years. Your spine is the same. Every day, without thinking, you repeat certain movements and positions, the way you sit, the way you stand, the way you get out of a chair or pick up something off the ground. And if you're like most people, you're doing these things in ways that put just a bit too much stress on your lower back. Nothing big enough to cause sharp pain right then, but enough to slightly irritate muscles, compress discs, and fatigue stabilizers. Over time, this accumulates. Your nervous system starts to feel that your lower back isn't secure, so it tells your muscles to tighten up as a protective guard. That's why you wake up stiff. That's why sitting too long makes your lower back feel like it's locked up. It's your body trying to protect you from what it thinks is an unstable situation. Why it's so hard to see the real cause. Here's why most people miss this. It's not dramatic. It's not a sports injury. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, like a tire losing air. Imagine you have a small leak in your car tire. It doesn't explode immediately. Instead, it goes flat bit by bit until you suddenly realize you're riding on the rim. That's what's happening with your lower back. Your back is adapting to your daily patterns, even the innocent ones. The scariest part? Your body is remarkably good at adapting to dysfunction until it can't anymore. So for years, your muscles compensate. Your spine stiffens certain segments. Your hips stop moving fully, so your lower back does extra work every time you bend or twist. You might not even notice anything wrong, until suddenly you do. One day, you bend down to pick up a sock and your back twinges, or you wake up after a long drive and feel like you aged 10 years. But that didn't start that day. It started with tiny, everyday habits wearing grooves into your system. But I didn't do anything to hurt my back. Exactly. Most people with chronic lower back tightness or soreness can't point to a single moment. It's not like falling off a ladder. It's the thousands of small, seemingly harmless things you do every day that slowly erode your spine's mechanics. Like sitting slumped at your desk for hours with your pelvis tucked under, driving with your seat leaned back, right foot always slightly ahead of your left, pelvis twisted, crossing your legs the same way every time, tightening one hip more than the other, standing in line with your weight always shifted to one leg, picking up a box with rounded spine instead of hinge hips. Individually, not a big deal. Collectively over years, they become the reason your lower back quietly starts screaming at you. Your body is a master compensation until it's not. Your nervous system's number one job is to keep you upright and your spinal cord protected. So when it notices your core isn't bracing well, or your hips are stiff, it comes up with a quick fix. Let's make the lower back muscles lock down to keep everything stable. That's why your lower back feels tight all the time. It's not because your muscles are magically too short. It's because your brain is telling them to contract and guard. This is also why stretching your lower back rarely fixes a problem for long. You can bend and pull on those muscles all day, but until your brain feels your spine is safe and stable, it will keep ordering your lower back to tighten right back up. What this video will reveal, your 3 silent mistakes. So now you see, most lower back pain isn't about the one heavy lift or twist that threw your back out. It's about the hundreds of daily movements and positions you repeat without thinking. That's why in this video, we're going to expose the top 3 things you're probably doing wrong every single day that overload your lower back. Things that almost everyone does, without even realizing they're quietly stressing the spine. And once you spot them, you can change them. That's how you start breaking the cycle and finally give your lower back permission to relax. Coming up next, we'll reveal mistake number 1. A simple thing you're doing for hours every single day that's compressing your spine and shutting down your hips, forcing your lower back to work overtime. And no, it's not just sitting too much. It's how you're sitting that matters. The first thing you're doing wrong every single day, and how it destroys your lower back. All right, so let's dive into the very first mistake most people make every single day that's wrecking their lower back without them even realizing it. And yes, it's connected to sitting. But it's not just the fact that you sit. It's how you're sitting, and for how long, and what parts of your body go completely offline when you do. Because the reality is, you could sit all day and have a healthy back if you did it the right way, but almost no one does. The modern sitting problem. It's not just a chair, it's your posture and your muscles. So picture yourself at your desk, or on the couch scrolling your phone, or driving your car. Most people look something like this, pelvis tucked under them, with their tailbone almost curled forward, lower back slightly flattened or even rounded in deflection, shoulders rolled forward, head jutting ahead of the shoulders. And you might think, yeah, that's bad for my neck and upper back. But here's the kicker. This is absolutely horrible for your lower back too. Why? Because when your pelvis tucks under, your lumbar spine, which should naturally curve slightly inward, flattens out or even reverses into a slight C shape. This means instead of stacking neatly, your vertebrae are now compressing your discs unevenly. Imagine a stack of jelly donuts that's tilted slightly backward. Over time, the jelly squeezes toward the back edge of the donuts. In your body, that's the inner gel of your discs pushing on thin, more vulnerable posterior walls. Meanwhile, your core and hips go to sleep. When you sit like this, with your pelvis tucked and your lumbar spine flattened, something else happens too. Your deep core stabilizers, the transverse abdominis, multifidus, and diaphragm, basically shut down. Your glutes completely turn off. They're stretched out and inactive. Your hip flexors shorten, pulling even more on your lumbar spine when you eventually stand up. So guess what picks up the slack when you finally stand? Your lower back muscles. They suddenly have to stabilize and extend your spine because your hips are locked and your core is lazy from hours of slouching. That's why you often stand up after working at your laptop for 2 hours and immediately press a hand to your lower back. Your body is practically shouting, "We don't feel stable. Quick, tighten everything up to keep us upright." It's not about the chair. It's about the posture and lack of micro-movement. You might be tempted to blame your chair. If I just bought a fancy ergonomic chair, I'd be fine. But the truth is, you can sit poorly on a $1,000 office chair, and you can sit well on a wooden stool. The key difference? How you position your pelvis. How often you shift and reset. Most people sit with their pelvis rolled under them. Try this. Put your hands on the tops of your hips and gently tilt your pelvis forward so your lower back forms a small, natural arch. That's the lumbar lordosis your spine is built to have. It's not about exaggerating it. You don't want to sway back dramatically, but a slight inward curve helps distribute load evenly across your discs and facet joints. The silent killer, staying in any position too long. Even if your posture is perfect, if you hold it for hours on end, your tissues still fatigue. Your discs rely on gentle movement to pump nutrients in and waste out. If you sit perfectly still, they slowly lose hydration. That makes them thinner, which forces your lower back muscles to tighten more to maintain stability. So ironically, the most important factor might not be your posture. It's that you don't change it often enough. Think about it. You wouldn't stand in the exact same position for 3 hours straight. You wouldn't keep your elbow bent at 90 degrees for half a day. Yet most people keep their spine locked in one shape while working, watching TV, or scrolling. Here's how to test yourself right now. Sit how you normally do at your desk. Now take your phone out and open your camera in selfie mode or use a mirror. What does your posture actually look like? Is your head ahead of your shoulders? Is your back flat or rounded? Can you feel your weight more on your tailbone or on the sit bones, ischial tuberosities? Now do this. Place your hands on your hips. Gently tilt your pelvis forward until you feel a small curve in your lower back. Stack your ribs over your hips. Tuck your chin very slightly. Feel different? Most people notice immediately their lower back actually feels less strained. Because the spine is stacked like it's supposed to be, the overlooked fix, frequent micro movements. Want to protect your lower back from that tight band feeling by 5 p.m.? Don't obsess over holding a perfect posture all day. Instead, move every 20 to 30 minutes, even if it's just tilting your pelvis back and forth a few times, standing up to shake out your legs, doing a small side bend or gentle rotation. These tiny resets tell your discs, hey, we're still moving, keep pumping nutrients. They also wake up your core and keep your nervous system from locking your lumbar spine into protective tension. Why this is mistake number one for most people. So let's put it together. The number one thing you're probably doing wrong every day that's destroying your lower back, sitting with your pelvis tucked, spine flattened, and hips plus core turned off for hours at a time. It's not your chair. It's not your age. It's not your genetics. It's a subtle, daily mechanical stress that's teaching your lower back muscles to stay tight, your discs to dehydrate, and your core to fall asleep. Change this one habit. Sit with your pelvis lightly tilted forward. Stand up often, and keep your hips moving, and you'll notice your lower back feels radically different by the end of the day. Up next, we're going to dive into the second thing you're probably doing wrong every single day. And this one has even more impact on your lower back than how you sit. Hint, it's about how you lift, bend, and even breathe, and why your core isn't actually protecting you the way you think. The second thing you're doing wrong every day that forces your lower back to do all the work. All right, we've already uncovered the first silent back killer, sitting the wrong way, with your pelvis tucked under, your core asleep, and your lower back compressed for hours. But even if you fix your sitting posture and get up every 30 minutes, there's another daily mistake most people don't even realize they're making, and it absolutely wrecks your lower back. It's so sneaky because it happens during all the tiny, seemingly harmless movements you do 100 times a day, like standing up from a chair, leaning forward to rinse your mouth at the sink, picking up a dropped sock, twisting to get your seatbelt, reaching down to fill the dog's water bowl. And what is this mistake? Letting your lower back do the work your core and hips are supposed to handle. Think about it like this. Your lower back, meaning your lumbar spine and the muscles around it, was never designed to be a prime mover. It was designed to be a stable platform. It's supposed to keep your spine secure while your hips and shoulders generate motion. But most people have flipped the script. Their hips and core are lazy and underused, so every little bend or twist ends up happening to the lower back. Why this happens, and why it's so hard to notice. Imagine you need to bend over to pick up a pen on the floor. The safe, balanced way would be, you hinge at your hips, pushing your butt backward, keeping your spine in neutral alignment, your glutes and hamstrings stretched to handle the bend. Your deep core lightly braces to keep your lumbar spine stable. But for most people, here's what happens instead. They keep their hips almost still. They round through their lower back. The lumbar spine flexes. The discs compress unevenly, and the tiny stabilizers like the multifidus strain to keep everything from collapsing. It's subtle. You don't feel it right away. But repeat it a few dozen times every day. It builds up micro-stress that forces your lower back to lock up later as a protective reaction. The core problem. Your core isn't protecting your spine. Most people think the core is just abs, or worse. They think it's only working when they're doing crunches or sit-ups. But your true core is a cylinder, made of your transverse abdominis, like a corset. Your diaphragm on top, your pelvic floor on the bottom, and small muscles around your spine. When you move, your core is supposed to gently contract 360 degrees, stabilizing your spine. Allow your hips to move freely without your lumbar segments bending excessively. But because we spend so much time sitting with lazy bellies and shallow breathing, your nervous system forgets how to fire these muscles. So when you bend, lift, twist, or even just stand up from a chair, your lower back compensates. It becomes a default mover and stabilizer, doing double duty it was never meant to do. Even your breathing patterns are wrecking your back. Want to see this live in your own body? Put one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Now take a breath. Where does it go? If you're like most adults, your hand on your chest rises more than your belly. That means you're chest breathing. Why does that matter? Because when you only use your upper chest to breathe, your diaphragm, the key top part of your core cylinder, isn't doing its job. That means your deep stabilizers stay quiet, and your lower back muscles get the memo. We're on our own. Better lock down to keep the spine safe. The proof is in how you lift things, even light stuff. Watch yourself next time you pick something up from the floor, even something as light as a shoe. Most people do this. They round through the spine, no hip hinge. Belly goes loose, back muscles take over. Compare that to a proper movement. Hips push backward, glutes load like a spring, deep belly lightly braces, spine stays neutral. The difference? When you hinge at your hips and brace your core, your lumbar spine barely moves. Your hips and core do the heavy lifting. Your lower back muscles simply keep the spine aligned, not under sheer stress. The hidden training you're accidentally doing, that's ruining your back. Here's something almost no one thinks about. Every time you pick something up the wrong way, with a rounded spine and no core engagement, you're literally training your nervous system to move poorly. You're practicing a dysfunctional pattern. Your body learns. Hips don't move. Back does. Core stays loose. Back muscles compensate. Do this hundreds of times per week, thousands per year, and your brain hardwires it as a default. That's why later, your back randomly seizes up after bending for something trivial like picking up a toothbrush. The quick standing test. Who's doing the work, your hips or your back? Try this simple test right now. 1. Stand up tall, feet under your hips. 2. Place your hands on the front of your hips. 3. Slowly push your butt backward like you're about to close a car door with it, keeping your spine in neutral. Do you feel your weight shift into your glutes and hamstrings? Do your knees stay relatively in place? That's a proper hip hinge. Now try it again, but this time let your back round instead of pushing the hips back. Feel the difference? When you round your spine, your lower back is doing all the flexing. That's the motion that adds micro stress to your discs and ligaments. The real fix. Teach your core and hips to work again. You don't need fancy exercises or hardcore gym routines. You just need to retrain your nervous system to. Brace your core lightly before moving. Push your hips back when bending instead of rounding your spine. Breathe into your belly and sides so your diaphragm engages. It's about tiny patterns repeated throughout the day, the same way you develop the bad ones. Because once your hips move and your core braces automatically, your lower back finally stops doing double duty. It gets to be what was meant to be, a strong, stable platform, not the main engine. Coming up next, the third mistake, and it's not what you think. So we've exposed two of the biggest daily mistakes that overload your lower back. Sitting wrong and staying static for hours. Moving with a lazy core and stiff hips. Forcing your lower back to bend and stabilize. But there's a third mistake almost everyone makes, and it's one of the most misleading. It's the idea that stretching alone will fix your lower back tightness. We'll show you in the next part why that's not only ineffective, it might actually be making your spine more vulnerable. The third big mistake, and why it keeps your lower back in pain, plus your simple daily fix. All right, we've already covered two of the biggest mistakes silently wrecking your lower back. Sitting wrong and sitting still for hours, flattening your lumbar curve and shutting off your hips and core, letting your lower back move instead of your hips and core, forcing your spine to do all the work every time you bend, twist, or even breathe. But now let's dive into the third mistake, which might surprise you, because it's the one thing almost everyone thinks is the solution to lower back tightness. When actually done the wrong way, it can make your back even more vulnerable. Mistake number 3, only stretching your lower back, without teaching it to stabilize. If you're like most people, whenever your lower back feels tight or achy, your first instinct is to stretch it. You might bend forward and hang your arms toward your toes. Pull your knees to your chest on the floor. Do a twisting spinal stretch. And yeah, it probably feels amazing in the moment. Your tight muscles get a nice pull. The ache might reduce by 50%. You get a rush of relief. But here's what most people don't realize. That temporary loosening is not your muscles actually getting longer or healthier. It's just a short-term override of your nervous system's guarding. And worse, if your back feels unstable underneath, your brain is going to clamp it down even tighter later to protect it. Why stretching alone doesn't fix back pain? Your lower back is tight for a reason. It's your body's way of saying, hey, we don't feel stable here. Let's lock down these muscles to keep the spine from moving too much. If you then stretch aggressively, you're basically forcing those muscles to let go without fixing the underlying problem. So your brain thinks, whoa, things feel even more unstable now. Better tighten up again to prevent damage. That's why most people notice. They stretch their lower back, feel good for an hour or two, but by evening the tightness is back, sometimes worse. Or it comes back even stiffer the next morning, because your body is literally overcompensating for the forced stretch by locking up more. The real issue, weak stabilizers and sleepy glutes. Here's the hidden truth nobody tells you. Tight muscles aren't your real problem. Weak, underactive stabilizers are. Your deep core, transverse abdominis, multifidus, diaphragm, pelvic floor, is supposed to brace your spine automatically. Your glutes are supposed to power movements, offloading the lower back. But after years of sitting, shallow breathing, and letting your hips get stiff, your nervous system no longer feels safe letting those areas handle the load. So it tightens your lower back like a rigid splint. The tightness you feel is your body's last-ditch effort to keep your spine from moving too much, because it knows the stabilizers aren't showing up to do their job. Stretching without reactivating those stabilizers is like loosening the ropes on a tent without fixing the poles. It might flap freely for a moment, but it's more likely to collapse. So what actually works? Combining gentle stability plus smart mobility. Instead of yanking on your lower back with long stretches, you need to reactivate your core and glutes so they take over stabilization. Mobilize your hips so your lower back doesn't keep moving excessively. Use tiny resets throughout the day to teach your nervous system it's safe to relax. That way, your lower back no longer needs to stay locked. It feels supported by the structures that were designed to protect it. Your simple daily anti-back pain blueprint. This isn't about spending hours in the gym or doing complicated rehab moves. It's about tiny, repeatable patterns that slowly rewire your brain to trust your core and hips again. Morning, set your spine upright. Roll out of bed onto your side first, then push up with your arms. Stand for the first 15 minutes. Let gravity decompress your discs. Drink water to start hydrating spinal tissues. Throughout your day, fix the micro habits. Every 30 minutes, stand, do a light hip hinge, but back, small belly brace. When picking something up, brace your belly, hinge at the hips, keep the spine neutral. While standing, squeeze your glutes for 5 seconds every so often. Breathe deep into your belly and sides. This wakes up the diaphragm and core cylinder. Evening, teach your body it's safe to relax. 90 to 90 decompression. Lie on your back, calves on a chair, hips and knees at 90 degrees, arms relaxed. Breathe slowly for 3 to 5 minutes. Gentle supine brace breaths. Inhale, let belly rise. Exhale, lightly pull belly button towards spine. Do 8 to 10 slow cycles. Why this beats random stretching every time? Because now, you're not just forcing muscles to lengthen. You're building a system where your core automatically fires to keep the spine stable. Your hips move more, taking the load off your lumbar segments. Your brain stops telling the lower back to lock down because it senses security. That's how real change happens. Not through passive stretching, but through active control and balanced movement. Wrapping up, your back doesn't have to feel tight forever. So let's quickly recap the three biggest mistakes you're probably making every single day that keep your lower back hurting. Sitting wrong and too long, with your pelvis tucked under and your spine flattened. Moving and lifting without your core or hips, letting your lower back take all the strain. Relying only on stretching, which feels good short term but doesn't fix why your muscles were tight in the first place. If you flip these patterns, if you teach your core to brace, your hips to hinge, and give your nervous system consistent signals that it's safe to relax, your lower back finally gets to stop doing double duty. It can just be what it was meant to be, a stable, quiet base that lets you move through life without fear. So here's what I want you to do. Try this for just 7 days. Then come back and drop a comment below telling me. My lower back used to feel stiff every morning, but after a week of these changes, here's what happened. Smash that like if this opened your eyes to why your back actually hurts. Subscribe, because next we're breaking down the hidden twist habits you probably do at your desk or when driving, and why they silently overload one side of your spine.